Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special edition, a September special edition of the Learning Curve with Ramya Deepak. As we dive into this month dedicated to mental health awareness, a special emphasis on women's mental health awareness. We are here to engage in meaningful conversations and share insightful perspectives on tackling these crucial issues. I'm truly delighted today to introduce a remarkable guest, someone whose expertise is widely recognized by many. Please join me in extending a heartfelt welcome to Tracy Izard. Tracy is a keynote speaker, author, and educator who's dedicated to inspiring people to collaborate and thrive in the workplace. Her passion is working with leaders and their teams to build a strong culture of trust, collaboration, and learning. This has powered her research and development of ferocious warmth leadership. Tracy has been running her own speaking and consulting practice for 15 years now. She works with senior leadership teams, whole organizations, and systems to create environments of safety and stretch through leadership and collaborative learning cultures. Tracy also runs women in leadership programs, supporting and mentoring women leaders through their journey. Thanks for joining us today, Tracy, on this very special episode.
Thanks, Ramya. It's so exciting to be here. I love what you do with your September every year. I think it's so important. So thanks. It's a great privilege to be chatting this afternoon.
Thank you. The privilege is all mine here. So let's start by if you can share a little bit about your background and experience in the field of educational leadership.
So my background is as a state school teacher in the Victorian state system. So I worked in both regional and metro schools. I was a performing arts teacher. I was a generalist primary teacher. My last role was assistant principal at Oakley Primary School, getting along for a long time now. And I've been doing, I've been doing this, as you mentioned, over 15 years, up to 17 years now. Working with leaders. I started running a leadership program years ago for the old eastern region of the department, amongst other things, when I started my business. And got to hang out with the people that I'd left when I had my first child as assistant principal. And I had a great principal at the time who said, come back part-time, do the AP role part-time. I was one of the first assistant principals to actually get pregnant. Because it was not long after merit selection came in. And so there weren't many of us that were, in our 30s that were starting families. So it was a sort of a new frontier, really. But I had this brilliant principal, Phil Hughes. He said, come back, job share. And I job shared with a fantastic woman who has just retired and is one of the most amazing educational leaders you'll ever meet, Kerry Wood. And we job shared the AP role, which was great when I had a little bub. I then decided to leave because I didn't think I was really doing a good enough job in either spot, which is a challenge for many women, I'm sure, that are listening. But I decided for me that I actually wanted to leave and resign so that the school could keep on going with what they wanted to do. And I thought, if I really want to get back into that role, I'll apply from the outside and I'll put my hat in the ring, give it my best shot. And I think that that's something that's always been, something that I've loved doing, is just going, well, let's take a risk. Let's see what happens. So I left. I did some work in a fine dining restaurant as a business manager for a few years. I'd worked as part of Teacher Release to Industry program in the automotive industry for a while. So I'd sort of tried lots of things and been really interested in leadership all the way along. And then I started my business, and, the leadership stuff has always been really strong for me since I was a kid, and as well as the teamwork. And I'd always worked in, not always, but a lot of my schools really gave me a good grounding in what deep collaboration was, what real learning with each other was. And so that sort of fostered the work that I do around both collaborative professional cultures and the emotional intelligence we need for them to thrive, but also the leadership and what leadership actually helps us get to where we want to go.
Absolutely. I know I've heard about this journey, about your journey before, and every time you speak about it, it completely amazes me and inspires me. But the another thing that inspires me is the phrase "ferocious warmth." I know I've told you this, but ever since I've heard and learned about this phrase from you and learned in details about all about ferocious warmth, it has become a mantra for me. So, can you please talk us through the process of this phrase and how this came about it, and then the significance of it?
Yeah, sure. Look, for many years when I was working around leadership with people, I'd look at helping people build 3 intelligences. So emotional intelligence, because, we know that makes such a difference to leadership, but also strategic intelligence. How do we know what we need to do? How do we know where we're heading for? How do we know the vision? How do we know the objective steps we need to take? So that side. And I don't think we necessarily get taught how to do that very well in education, or we certainly didn't when I was first working in that space. So both of those came together. And then the third intelligence that I would work with people on is building learning intelligence. So am I a learner? And do I create a learning culture? Do I contribute to that? And so those 3 sort of come together. And so that's the lens I would use when I did leadership programs or worked in schools. And then probably about 2016, 2017, I was working up in Townsville at a primary school called Rasmussen Primary School, where, great challenging environment, fantastic school. They'd gone through some real challenges of having like 7 teachers in 9 years, and a lot of turnover. A lot of turnover at transitory in students, high First Nations population, beautiful, beautiful community. They kept on moving though, and they struggled around outcomes. They struggled around providing that really high quality education they wanted to. And I came along in the second year of Claudine Moncur-White's principalship, and I went and worked with her and her team. And I spent the first morning with her out on the gate, because that's where she was every morning at 8:00. Welcoming every child in, every family in, checking down, did they need to go sideways to get some new shoes from the second hand, or the spare stuff? Did they need to get breakfast happening? Did the mother or the father need a bit of TLC? Did they just need to have a good joke? What was it that they were doing to really create this? So what she was doing was creating this environment where people felt really connected to her. And then you walked in her office, and in her office, it's Queensland School, very much focused on data walls. All the data was up on the walls. She would really proudly show you where the growth was, where students were making a real shift around their achievement. And she would do it with such pride. And then you walked into the staff room. She'd totally remodeled the staff room as a surprise for her staff. She had blacked out the windows. She'd rolled out a red carpet and made this beautiful environment for them to be able to chill, talk, collaborate, connect. And I said to her, all of a sudden I just went, boom. It's sort of like a little bit of a boom. I went, I see that what you've got is this beautiful, ferocious warmth. You're ferocious about education, around students, around the care and the love for your staff and your community. You've got a plan for it. You see that the high expectations are important, but you've got this incredible warmth where people are just drawn to you and you're drawn to them. You have a love for them. And so that's where it popped. And I just love talking about Claudine. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, which is just devastating. But right up to when she passed away, her attention was out on people. I got an email from her just before the book came out, just, congratulating me and just, how she missed being at school. And there are so many people like Claudine in education, aren't there? And that's why it resonates with you, Ramya, isn't it? Who do you know that reminds you of that?
Oh, I have
Who in
my current principal, Campbell Mackay, is definitely one of those I would call, and Honey Sterling, who was my previous principal. But there are so many of them, I come across, those are principals, but then if I look at leaders beyond that, beyond my immediate school environment as well, there are so many people that I see, and you're right, they just that radiate that energy, that warmth when then you're around them, but they're also strategic and have an intent and purpose in what they're doing, and that passion just comes through them, that in terms of that they're not here to waste your time or my time, and this is what needs to be done, and these students are always at the center, the staff is always at the center of what we are doing, but at the same time you want to work with them and you want to talk to them. So and that's
and they have that great ability, don't they, to do that. I feel safe with you, yet you stretch me. No, and, I'm a bit of a pattern observer. So for many, many years, it's probably the first decade of doing this work, when I worked with people, I would get them to really talk to each other and then talk to me around what's the stuff that you really see in leaders as bringing out the best in you and the people around you. And time again, the things that would come out would be I absolutely feel connected with them and I feel I can trust them, but I also feel they trust me and that they want to stretch me and they want the very best for
Yeah,
me.
absolutely.
So, again, those patterns come in. Also, that they're authentically,
Mm,
there's the authenticity around real care and
mm,
love, but also an
mm,
expectation that we're here for a job
yeah.
and let's do it. And I think when you bring those together, that's what the premise of ferocious warmth is it's head and heart.
Mm,
Depending on the context, what's the blend of that?
yeah.
What's the strength of it? But there's always that underlying care, empathy, and compassion.
Yeah.
That means that actually people are totally okay with us raising the bar with them
Yes.
because they know it's in our best interest.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I have and since I've learnt about this, obviously I notice that more in people who are there, and I notice also people who are probably skewing on either side a little bit more than needed. So I noticed that as well. But then I read your book, and I absolutely adore this book. Read it many times. Have recommended to many people. And as I said, my current principal, I see him as a ferocious warmth leader. And then I have been talking to him about this book about so many times. I actually wanted to gift him this book, and then he recently got it as a gift. With your signature on
Yeah.
it, I heard about it. So and then he immediately came and showed me, Ramya, look what you wanted to get me, and I got it. And I'm like, yes, but
Right.
in that book, another thing that we both have in common is our love for Brene Brown and some of the quotes she
Mm.
says. And you have quoted her on page 14. I know about her politics quote, but the one of the other things she said, which is about specifically about women leaders, is that the criticism we face that we are not aggressive enough or assertive enough, or just because we are empathetic or weak, it means that we are weak. And that's what is ferocious warmth, isn't it,
Yeah.
in some ways? Because just because we are warm doesn't mean we can't be strategic and we can't sing. And just because we are strategic doesn't mean we are warm. So, do you see a connection between
Yeah.
women leaders and ferocious warmth more than normal?
Um, I would say that if you asked me to give you 20
Mm,
names of ferocious warmth leaders that just pop into my head, probably a majority of them are
mm-hmm.
women. And is that because of the people that I connect into and who connect into my message? Maybe. Um, I also know some brilliant ferocious warmth men, and you've named Campbell
Absolutely.
already. I know some incredible ferocious warmth
Mm,
men. So and when I have a group, like I do women in leadership programs, but I often work with just a whole bunch of senior, of school
mm,
leaders, principals, assistant principals, leading teachers. And when we talk about, do you feel like your default is more head driven or more heart driven? It's pretty much splits down the middle
mm,
often. Um, and it's really interesting looking at the research around in emotional intelligence. Do women display more emotional
mm,
intelligence? And there's a lot of discourse around, well, often women are able to be seen in studies to be more emotionally expressive.
mm,
But is that because we're actually socialized
mm.
to? So it doesn't mean perhaps that males don't
Yeah.
express it as much as a general rule, but maybe they're not as much socialized. When I talk with a ferocious warmth uh, leader that is
Mm,
male, their ability to articulate their emotions or the understanding and awareness of other people's emotions is
yeah.
extraordinary, which is what ferocious warmth
Absolutely.
leadership is all about. Do I know women that go to
Mm,
fearsome, which is the extremities you don't want? Yes. Do I know males that do?
mm,
Yes. Do I know women that go into what I call the enmeshed space of unhealthy relationships and
mm.
drama? Yes. Do I know some men?
Yes.
Yes. So for me, it's all about what's my
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness and what does my context
Yeah.
require for me to make sure that I am holding the space for people to be the best they can
Ab-
be, as well as myself.
Absolutely.
So regulating around that, but also at the same time, having the boundaries and the clarity around what we need to do and co-creating that with people. And this comes down to where we can't do strategy well unless we've got culture
Absolutely
happening.
true.
They are so bound out together. So yes, I think in a lot of ways, many women can access the warmth
Mm,
easier, but I still think it's absolutely a
absolutely.
learned
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's interest.
True, that I agree with that, and I
There's
think we both have seen and met many leaders, ferocious warmth leaders from both sides of the fence, and obviously,
mm, mm,
but in just terms of educational leadership, if we dig a bit more deeper, just with the
mm,
demand of the
mm,
educational leadership of the role itself and the high
mm,
pressure,
mm.
and have in
Yes.
your experience with the Women in Leadership program and stuff like that, what kind of challenges
Mm,
have women leaders expressed to you that
mm,
that affect their mental health and that makes it difficult for
mm.
them? What have you heard from?
Yeah. Well, I think there's always those really
Mm,
obvious ones that for many women, they're juggling so many
mm,
hats that, the career is there, but there's, I worked with a leadership team yesterday, out of 8 people, 6 of them have young
yes.
families, yet they're senior leaders in a school. That's always gonna
Yeah.
be challenging because you can't hang on and wait,
Yeah.
hang around at the end of the meeting to just do what you need to do. You've got to be really clear and regimented, around stuff. There's also, real challenges, I think, with
Yeah.
perimenopause and menopause that
Absolutely.
never gets spoken about in the education system. And I feel it's such a breath of fresh air when I do a Ferocious Warmth group mentoring
Mm,
program where I just have sort of 8 women that we do a series of work over 4 or 5 months. And it's so refreshing to hear people just have a
mm,
laugh around what might be going on for them in that
mm,
space, because it's the reality of a huge
mm.
percentage of our sectors, the participants that will be going through menopause, perimenopause, challenges around young families, often having to be the main, I was going to say, looker
Yes.
after at home. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It is liquor
Yeah.
aftering. And so I think that, that one of the things that I love talking to people around, is how do we have really good open conversations with the people that support us? It may be our intimate partner, but we may be a sole
Mm,
parent. How do we get our squads around us, our
mm.
support, that actually allows us to be able to not sit in guilt
Yes.
all the
Yes.
time? Probably one of the biggest learnings I've had over the years, I
Mm.
think, is that guilt is not
No.
useful for us at all. And to be able to, um, take time for ourselves, we don't have enough
Yeah.
women in leadership
Yeah.
yet, for the size of the
Mm,
sector, female participants, 80% in
mm,
primary, and yet about 45%, 55% are
mm,
principals. Um, and I'm not, I think middle leadership, same. Our middle leaders are so
mm.
important. How do we actually
Yes.
build in that ability for ourselves to carve time for ourselves, to not feel that, you know, our well-being should be
Mm,
last? I have a mantra around, because the whole concept of ferocious warmth is when we are at our
mm.
optimal, we're actually able to have that agility to pull from our head
Yes.
and our
Yes.
heart. When we're out of
Mm.
balance, it's usually because we're emotionally
Absolutely.
dysregulated. So
Yeah.
therefore, our
Mm.
well-being isn't, in the bucket over here. It should be absolutely a leadership behaviour that we
Absolutely.
practice in some time every
Mm.
day, even if it is, I'm going to grab this cup of tea from the staff room, but I am not going to go and sit at my desk.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk down the corridor to one of my favourite classrooms. I'm going to sit in there. I'm going to chew the fat with my mate that's doing some work in the classroom at the
Yeah.
moment. And I am not going to feel guilty for that, because what that's doing is that is looking after and filling my well,
Hmm.
so that I can be the person that I want to be for my
Yes.
well-being.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Tracy. Very important points there. And, I know we can keep discussing about this for hours in end, because some of these challenges are, they are forever. But, we know, and we've come a long way in discussing these, and we've come a long way in, um, doing some, you know, improvements in those areas as well, but still there's a long way to go. So before we wrap up, is there anything else? And and this is about September, and September is all about women's mental health. Is there any
Yes.
advice you would give to young women, or anything else you would like to share, just to wrap up our conversation today?
Sorry, I've put a pause in there because we got unstable
That's
for a
okay.
moment there. So I'm
No, that's okay.
sorry,
I was just saying, if
Ramya.
there was anything, just to wrap up our
Yes,
conversation, was
I
there
heard
any
that one.
advice you would give to young women
Yeah.
leaders or aspiring women leaders, or anything else you would like to say, just
Yep.
to wrap up?
Great. It would be you don't have to do it
Yes.
all. It doesn't have to be
Mhm.
perfect. In fact, it's probably much better if it's not
Mhm.
perfect. That part of our job as we step into taking on more leadership is getting good at delegating. That delegating is not palming off your own work. What it is it's being a leader that actually helps to build others. Now, you might not be in a leadership position
Mm.
looking at this, so it might not be around leadership, but being really mindful around what's my responsibility and what is it I'm taking on that's not mine, because I have high expectations of myself. And the last one would be, don't be guilty about outsourcing the stuff that doesn't bring you a lot of
Yeah.
benefit. I do not scrub my shower and put a toilet brush down my toilet. I mean, I
Yeah,
do
I know
that,
what you
but
mean.
I have I have I have someone who comes in and she does my cleaning for
I
me.
know
She
what
does it
you
every
mean.
fortnight, and because I actually want to be able to spend quality time doing the stuff
Yes.
that is important to the rest of my
Yes.
life. Now, some people love cleaning, so I don't take that away from them at all. Good on you. Outsource something else, and don't feel
Yeah,
guilty about it.
absolutely. I take that advice completely, Tracy, because on days when I know that I'm working late, the dinner is being ordered because I don't have the energy to cook, and I love cooking.
Yes,
And I love cooking, but I don't
beautiful,
have the energy to come back and cook that
great.
day. So that day dinner is being ordered, and I don't feel guilty about it. If
Yeah,
it's a takeaway or if
yeah.
it's whatever food it is, because hello, yeah, I mean, you have
Mm.
to prioritize and you have to put
That's
yourself out
it.
there. Out there.
Absolutely. Some people just all of a sudden have this amazing spring in their step when they go, okay, 3 nights a week we're going to do good old Hello Fresh or
Yeah,
whatever they are, that brings me, because then I don't have to think about anything shopping. And if you've got teenage kids, they can
they can
start
start
cooking
cooking.
for you.
Absolutely. And I am looking at that. I am looking at that. Thank you so much, Tracy. Um,
You're
thank you. The internet
welcome.
has not been very friendly to us today, but I think we have managed to get through a pretty good chat. And I'm sure the recording that our
Great.
viewers will get to watch will be perfect. But as always, it's a pleasure to chat to you, Tracy. It's a privilege. And I hope
So
we can
nice.
connect again in person soon, not just on the side of
Yes.
screen. And yeah, we would love to connect with you soon in
Thank you.
person. And thanks everyone for
Great.
your comments that you keep post and your views on my episodes. This episode is part of our September special edition. So please feel add your comments to this episode as well when it just get posted. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ramya. See you.